And the one biggest thing that I could note that is completely different between working on houses and working on vans is the angle. In houses, most of the angles of the walls are relatively straight with decent right angles at least. But in a van, especially the older vans, most of everything is rounded. And not only is it rounded, but a lot of the angles just don't make any sense. You can take measurements on one part of the van that's supposed to be identical to another part and notice that they're all completely different numbers. So today I'm working on another cabinet, but this one is entirely made out of completely weird and frustrating angles. So I'm going to be taking you guys through that and showing you how I decided to get through these weird angles that I have to deal with. First things first, I'm going to cut some wood, then I'm going to show you how I work around these angles. Let's get to it. There are three main popular methods to cut out weird shapes, but just keep in mind that none of these three are definite and sometimes they might not work. And if there's also a method that I did not mention in this video that you like to use or that you know about, please comment it so we can all know what it is. Now, as you can see here, I cut out two separate pieces of wood that are both odd shapes, but I did them using two completely different methods. This one might appear to be an actual rectangle, but it's not because two of the sides have different lengths, but it's just like a very slight angle. So let me show you guys method number one, the same method that I used to cut out this piece right here. Now with this method, what you're going to do is go along your area that you're trying to cut out and just measure each point of it all the way down the entire thing, and then mark where you measured those with your width points, and then that way you can kind of draw out what it's supposed to be based off of all the measurements. Now this can be an extremely tedious process or an extremely easy process depending on what you're cutting out. For example, if you're cutting out something that's just a gradual angle, but it's just, you know, it changes, it has a different length at the beginning and at the end, then it's really easy. All you have to do is measure the beginning, measure the end, and then draw a line in between. And 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be pretty close to what the actual shape is. I cut out this piece that's eventually going to go in this spot here, and it appears to be flush to the ceiling, and it's also straight on the bottom, and that's because I kept the bottom straight. And then on this side, I believe it was 9 inches, on this side it was 9 1/4, so it was all good. Where this would become a problem is if I was going all the way across the ceiling. As you can see, the ceiling bows out as it goes because this is a van, so it shapes like that, right? But it's not a definite curve all the way across. It changes as it goes. Now, if I were actually going all the way across that ceiling in that same direction that I just showed you, I personally would not use method number one. It's just too many measurements and it's just a huge use of time. Since I actually already did do something similar to that in the front of my van, I can show you what I did, and I actually used method number two. So as you can see, that's the front of the van that I'm working on. I still got that same weird curve thing going on here, but I was still able to get it pretty flush and look like it's supposed to be there. So the way that I did that was with what I like to call the cardboard method. Generally, this is the most frequent method that you're going to see me doing in my builds, just because I always have cardboard, it's always free, and I can mess this up as many times as I want without messing up my wood. With the cardboard method, what you're going to do is hold a piece of cardboard up to a surface and then kind of just cut out all of the parts that are touching the wall until you get to the shape that you're trying to get. And as you can see with my second piece of wood here, I have, well, where is it? And as you can see with my second piece of wood here, I made this with this piece of cardboard that I cut out to be the exact right size. I also truly enjoy this method because you can constantly check to make sure this is right before you ever even try to cut the wood. Once you cut out your cardboard, all you're gonna do is hold it up to the wall and make sure it fits completely before you cut out your actual wood, and then your wood piece should fit just like the cardboard. It just has more depth to it. And this is the same exact method that I used on this piece of wood that was on this cabinet that I just made in my last video. Now method number 3 is a little bit different and it's a little bit tricky, but I'm going to get into it here. Now method number 3 is a method that I'm not very fond of using because it's kind of easy to mess it up, but it's also a really good way to get like an exact curve perfectly. So it's either 100% good or 100% bad, and that's why it's kind of a risk to do it sometimes, but you can always start over. So method number 3 is often called scribing, and that's not actually my term for it, that's just what I heard a lot of people call it. And that's basically when you might take a piece of cardboard or a piece of wood, put it up to your surface, and then draw out that curve with a marker by leaning on the actual piece of wall that you're trying to cover. Now let's say that I'm trying to scribe this same exact curve that I did earlier with this piece of cardboard. Basically what I would do is take a piece of cardboard, put it as close to the corner as I can get it, and then line up a straight edge with a straight edge, and then just try to hold that in place. Then what I'm going to do is take a pen or a marker or whatever and kind of like make a distance with my hands, and then just drag that from one end all the way down until it runs off the cardboard. Then you cut that piece out and it'll get closer to the wall, and then you continue this process until it's a perfect template. Now the reason why I personally don't like to scribe too often is just because it's really easy to mess it up. The reason is that you have to start and finish your line at the exact angle with your hand, and there's a lot of room for error there. So sometimes what I like to do to make it even easier is to use something other than my hand to hold the pen. And as you can see here, this is a piece of wood with a hole in it, but that hole is the exact drill size of a standard Sharpie. So what I do is just stick this Sharpie in the hole here, and then what I would do is lean this up against my surface, and then it would draw like this. Now this is a little bit more accurate just because this distance right here is not going to change, as if you were drawing it, possibly like you might move your finger, you might move your wrist while you're moving it. And even on top of that, the thing that makes it even more difficult, even if you are using this, is that you have to stay, like, let's say you're at this angle. If you change your angle of your hand a little bit, I'm going to exaggerate, then now the marker is in a different position than it would be if it was, you know, staying in the exact same spot the whole time. So that's why personally you're not really going to see me scribing that often, because it's really easy to mess it up, though it is probably the most accurate way to get an exact template of the space you're working with. Anyway, I hope this video helped you guys out. This was something that was always bugging me when I first got started working on these vans, was that nothing could be straight at all. I mean, even if you just make a regular piece of furniture to put into your van, it has to be able to fit the walls and the corners and everything before that. So at least one side of everything you make is going to have a weird angle to it. Now, if you guys want to follow my journey while I'm building this van before I sell it, then make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Catch you later.